Catherine. Welcome back to A Grief Journey. I made this channel after my 11-year-old daughter, Kaya, suddenly and unexpectedly died. I'm not only a mom going through grieving, losing her daughter, I'm also a psychologist. So I am starting, now that I'm in a better place, to try to address grief both through a personal perspective and a professional perspective. So I tried to make a video on all the ways we might get stuck when we are grieving and some ideas about how to get unstuck. And I kind of realized I was trying to cram too much information into one video, and it was hard and it was awkward and I just didn't like the way it was coming off. So I've decided to make my very first series on this channel, which is a series about different ways that we might get stuck in grief, and some thoughts around that. So today I want to cover something that I think is maybe one of the biggest issues when it comes to grief, which is not giving grief time. And what I mean by that, they say time heals all wounds, but it's not time that heals the wounds. It's what we do with the time that heals the wounds we have. So one of the best pieces of advice I got shortly after Kaya died, and this was something I knew to be true professionally, but in the throes of my grief, I needed to be reminded how important this is that you've got to let it hurt. If you don't give it the time to hurt, the grief is going to continue to stick around. Now, with that being said, obviously, so I've had many losses over the years. I've had to say goodbye to friends. I've had to say goodbye to children I've worked with. I'm a child and adolescent psychologist. I've lost family members. I've lost pets, and I've grieved them all, but nothing anywhere near this level of pain have I ever experienced. And letting it hurt is a big ask. And with that being said, I can't let it hit me full steam all the time, and I get that. But in order to make progress with my grief, I do have to let it hurt on a fairly regular basis. I have to let the weight of losing my daughter hit me, and it hits really, really hard. Now, with that being said, I think there are two reasons that people might not give grief time. They might not give time to just be with it and let it hurt without distracting themselves with other things, substances or distractions like your phone or, Netflix. Netflix is kind of my big addiction. There are two reasons I think this might be is because there are some people that just can't afford the time. I'm going to tell a little story about my grandma. My grandpa died when my dad was 6, and my grandma was left with 4 children, age 6 through I think 11, that she had to raise, and a farm, and to do that all on her own. So she had so many people counting on her, and she had support, but really not enough support to be able to give herself a lot of grace and give herself a lot of time. I, on the other hand, am married, have a partner, and after Kaya died, I had 1 kid. And I have access to disability insurance, and I was able to take that time. I'm back to a pretty busy schedule. I'm back to a lot of responsibilities, but when this happened, I was able to take the time to really let it hit me. And not only do you need the time to let it hit you, but you need recovery time after you've let it hit you. You need to kind of like recalibrate yourself, get yourself back into a functional place, because you can get pretty dysfunctional when you let it hit you all the way. You need recovery time. So if you've got a bunch of people depending on you, you've got to not only afford the time to let it hit you, you've got to afford the recovery time. And some people just don't have that. But I will say with my grandma, she told me before she died that when her husband died, she just focused on raising her children and keeping them going. And then when my dad finally graduated and left the house, so that was 12 years later, the grief hit her like her husband had died the day before. So that grief will stick around no matter how much time goes by. If you don't let it hurt, that grief is just going to stay there. So not giving it that time can really get you stuck. Another reason I think people don't take the time to let grief really hit them is because it hurts too much. I know letting the loss of Kaya hit me when it hits me can feel very traumatic a lot of the time. It is the most painful thing that I've ever had to do in my life, and I've had to do some pretty painful things in my life, but this is by far the most painful, is sitting down and letting it hit me full steam. And it can be really intimidating and really overwhelming, and completely understand why, some people are not in a good place to do it. And I definitely have days where I'm like, I cannot do it today. I just don't have enough resources in me to survive letting it hit me. So I just keep myself distracted. So with that being said, if, you're in grief or know someone who's grieving and kind of stuck because they, can't give it the time for one reason or another, and you want to share this video with them, some ideas I have around letting it hurt. First off, it doesn't matter how much or how little time you let it hurt. You figure out what works for you. But if you are going to make a commitment to sitting down and letting the full weight of your loss hit you, definitely I would highly suggest a few things. First, make sure you've got a lot of resources because it can hit really hard. Make sure you've got loved ones that you can call or are in your place with you, who can help you when you're done or during it. I personally love to go on walks. I think walks in the sunshine and in nature, definitely that really positive input helps balance me out a little bit. And then as I walk, the just taking the different steps on the different sides of my body, it's called bilateral stimulation, definitely helps me process through a few things. And if I need to sit in nature for a while and not let it hit me, that helps me re-regulate. And I have my phone on me if I need to phone a friend during a walk or a family member during a walk to talk through some things. I personally, when I let it hit me, that's my preferred way to do it, is going on a walk outdoors. I live in beautiful, sunny Colorado, which makes it very weather friendly most of the time for me to go on a walk. You might not have that wherever you live, but if you can go on a walk, I would highly suggest that. A couple other thoughts. You don't want to be distracting yourself in any way, shape, or form during this. You want to let it hit you as hard as it needs to hit you. So using any substances, if you drink, go ahead and drink, but try to be sober during these times that you're letting it hit you. And that's because if you subdue the anxiety in your brain, with a substance, it won't fully process as well as it would have otherwise. So try to be as distraction free when you do this. That will make it the most powerful. And I'm definitely going to leave you all with, me very much trying to understand why giving it time, not trying to understand, I do understand why giving it time can be so hard. And now that I'm back to work full time, my heart is definitely going out to people who don't have disability as an option. They have to stay at work full time in order to feed their families. It's definitely a blessing I had to have access to take time off of work, and not everybody who goes through huge losses has that. But as much as possible, try to let yourself give it time. Or like my grandma, you might find yourself in 12 years with the full weight of it finally hitting you. And, have to deal with it anyway. It's going to come at you one way or another. The grief and the pain is going to hit one way or another now or decades from now. So those are also things to keep in mind. Anyway, like I said, I'm hoping this is going to be an ongoing series. I'm not hoping it is. I'm going to make it one, whether you like it or not. But if there are ways you've gotten stuck or things about getting stuck in grief that you would like me to try to make a video about, please post it in the comments below. And I hope you all have a lot of love and support around you, and I will see you next time.